Hey everyone, Zephan here, and I'm joined by Ivan. And Ivan reached out to me because he's working on a project that's coming up here, quoting things out, and just wanted to kind of talk through what that looks like, make sure that things were quoted right, and maybe have a couple other questions along the way. So I'm recording this for our course members to kind of just learn from somebody who's out there in the field doing this. And I know that we're going to have you give us some background on what this project is. And I think one of the catalysts for this, too, you had mentioned before we hopped on this recording, was that you had like a 50,000 plus project that you had quoted for the first time in the past like year or so. And that was your first largest one over, I think, like 20K. So I'm sure that has been a huge catalyst for you moving into this project. So how about you give me some background on what we're working on here and any questions along the way, and let's see where we take it.
Yeah, brother. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the course. And for any course members that would be watching this on the replay afterwards, man, can't say enough about all the work that you've put into this, Zephan. You didn't ask me to say this. I really mean it. You're
Thank you.
just very like diligent about this. You got a great heart when it comes to this, as well as like for folks like me who aren't technically challenged, but maybe when it comes to live streaming, your course hit right at the right time, dude. Because I had sent a proposal, closed the deal, and then went into full in panic mode, like having closed a $53,000 contract, right? And then like, how do I fulfill on this? Because I don't have the technical expertise. I've got 2 live streams under my belt that were like 30 minutes in length, and they were local community ones that probably no one watched. So it hit at the right time. And we were talking about earlier. I filled up my Amazon shopping cart, did a whole bunch of shopping, and then got, at least for our site, the right team to be able to execute on it. So, brother, I'm coming to you today, and hopefully this will be of value not only to you but to others. But same client from this past year. So we had this $53,000 live stream contract, our largest contract of any type ever, um, come to fruition this past year. We've discussed it offline, some difficulties on other partners. To give context, we were streaming 4 different sites across 4 different parts and regions of our state simultaneously all in the same day, all with copyrighted music, and for streams of 8.5, 10, and 12 hours in length. So that being said, we found some solutions to be able to stream somewhat effectively. Our partners weren't the greatest at 3 of the sites, and that was a live event company that came in that swore up and down they did live streaming, which they just didn't do it to our expectations. So, all right, I'm coming back this year because just got an inquiry from the same organization that we did the 6 live streams last year. 5 of those were live in person. 1 was a sim live 7.5 hour stream that we produced. And
And
this
that's
year,
just pre-recorded video being played back,
pre-recorded.
right? That's
Yep.
for
Yep.
everybody watching.
Yep.
Cool.
And used and triggered a program to be able to send that out to an encoder to then send that to the streaming partner that we used, so that I could sleep, because we actually did an 8 or 10 hour stream the day before. So it was like boom, boom. Yeah, I slept good that afternoon. Anyway, cutting to the chase, they just came back. They said, "Hey, can you give us a quote? We're looking at doing in person, but we do want to provide live streaming this year instead of regionals, which is what we covered last time. Regionals and the Sim Live was state competition. They said, can we do hybrid? Can you set us up with streaming, ticketing again, etc.?" I'm like, great. Okay, let's do that. So I just worked out some figures, trying to pad everything with profit, which is important. We're discussing this offline too, like making sure we have enough profit that we're making off of the partners that we bring in for something like this. So single day, 12-hour stream, Again, using copyrighted music, so we have to be mindful of where we're streaming to, or accessibility, that sort of thing. There's no way around it. It's dance competition. We're doing it in an arena, which will be split. So if you would look at an arena floor like you're watching a basketball game, kind of like at center court on either side, filming. One side, performances will happen. The other side, performances will happen on that side, and they're going back and forth for 12 hours. So going through the stuff in the course, it's kind of unique in that we're doing this. We're also streaming, and we're responsible for the ticketing for that as well. Our clients will pay us, and we do take a little cut off of the ticketing for the platform costs and taxes. We just discussed that offline
Yeah,
too.
we were talking about that.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So this is my background and scenario for you. Tech day, which would be the day before, which would be a Friday, the event on Saturday. And we wouldn't leave till the next day, because for me personally, it's a 4.5 hour drive to get to this location, along with other team members that we may bring in from out of state to help us execute on it. So ballparking it, man, like help me work through kind of the pricing,
Yeah,
because I'll tell you, I did submit a proposal. I just wanted to like either get
yeah,
confirmation, yeah, that was a good figure to land on, or think of it this way, maybe it looks like this. So yeah, I'm
yeah,
all ears.
yeah. So I'm gonna bring up just some sticky notes on my computer so I can take notes as we're talking through it.
Awesome, man.
Um, so the first thing that I go into is the amount of pre-production planning and consulting time. So the way I'm going to approach something like this, 99% of the time, is pre-production, production, post-production. Post-production, however, in a live streaming standpoint, can actually be not post the event. It might be having to edit together or create lower thirds, graphics, videos, any sort of assets that might be needed for the event. Um, so on the pre-production side, are you doing a site survey at this venue before you go in there on the tech setup day?
So the tech setup day would be the 5th. And no, that's not the plan to do
Okay.
anything ahead of time, although we would probably speak to whomever is in charge of the tech on site, because as anything, we're only as good as the dedicated internet that we have, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I want to have a conversation with the people at the arena. Like, what can we have?
Yeah.
What can we wire into? And then if that's not the case, then I'm getting a unit from a past partner that we've used
You
stuff
like those
from.
pop-up guys?
Man, pop up Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
dude. So
I know you should be like an affiliate for them.
I am, people get, so honestly, you can cut this out later, but between you and I, like I told them, I want to let other people know how good this service was, because the fact that I can pick up a phone, talk to someone anytime, day or night. They're in New
Yeah,
Zealand, Zephan. So like I literally pick up a phone. Okay, we got you dialed in. All right, plug in your encoder. Great. You got signal. Leave that plugged in
that's
till
awesome.
tomorrow. You're set. Like, stupid
That's
simple, dude.
awesome.
So anyway, people get like a
Yeah.
certain data package if they tell them that I
No,
sent them there.
anyone that's watching this for sure, I would happily leave this in here. You
Oh, dude,
discovered them, so
that's very generous of you, but I really believe in them, because I had no issues. At all 4 sites, we ran into issues because we were using school internet. So
mm,
obviously, an encoder not being a computer, nor something that's
yeah,
previously been vetted by IT teams, we were getting blocked from jump. And then I just told
yeah.
everybody, plug them into the units. That's why we have them as a backup. And we streamed all those crazy links with pop-up Wi-Fi. So yeah. Anyway, besides the point.
So yeah, so on the quoting side, thinking on a site survey, I usually flat fee it at like, 250 to $300 if it's just me. But if I'm doing the site survey with, say, an audio person, which I have a dedicated local audio person now that I've been starting to push all my clients, if the budget is there, to just let him handle his side. He'll bring the speakers. We won't use the in-house stuff. We don't have to risk it. So, anywhere from $300 to $500 as a flat fee of just, we're going to show up and do a site survey. Client's going to meet us there. Any IT people on site, we're there for no more than an hour, 99% of the time. And, usually I'm happy to give my guy $100 for showing up for an hour just for his time. So that right there is the first piece. The second piece on the pre-production side is if you had to incur any expenses, right? So if you've got to rent the pop-up Wi-Fi, you know how much that runs now, so you can have some pricing to include in your quote. So I'd be including that pricing. I would also be including any pricing if it were, you mentioned a bigger event kind of in an arena. So I don't know if you're renting any lighting or using what's already provided there. I imagine with the dance competition, they might have a crew that's kind of handling that stuff in-house. But, if you needed anything, like even if you were just renting like an aperture light with the spotlight attachment just to like spotlight a podium and someone talking, or like a judge's table or something. So
Mm.
any of that stuff, I can't give you a number just because that's going to be whatever that
Yep.
stuff comes out to. But I would highly recommend having at least like a 20% pad, if not more, on the rental cost of any of those items. So, for some people, if there's no internet source, it might not be pop-up Wi-Fi. It might be renting a live view solo or renting a Teradek encoder with a couple of those cellular dongles so that you can get a cell signal. So that cost is really one of those things that I can't say off the top of my head, but it's just going to be whatever that is plus the padding.
Yep.
So that right there is the first piece. The second part of the pre-production is going to be all the calls, all the consultation, all the emails back and forth. So, I can say from smaller projects, sometimes that's usually default to around 10 hours. And I'll just bill like consulting time at like $100 an hour. If I get the feeling they're going to be an annoying client, and that price might go up per hour. But basically, just an hourly fee, default to 10 hours minimum on the smaller projects. With this being a 1 day one, but because it's at like a bigger venue and there's more moving parts, I would probably plan for a little closer to 20 hours, especially if you're doing more like having to create any graphics in advance, or if there were videos or audio that you've got to collect, or even if you just have to like get on a call with the DJ or whoever's handling audio on site, like all that stuff takes up your time.
Yep.
I'm not saying to track every call and be like, oh, this call was 43 minutes, this call was 13 minutes, because you're never going to be able to keep track of the emails that you answered at 10 o'clock at night, or, the time that you like got to a site for another gig, but, you had to talk to the client on the way there. So like, I am kind of gauging this partially on past experience and partially on two factors. One, how many days the event is, and two, how complex it is. So being a 1 day event, but being a longer event in a bigger venue, that's where I kind of shift from that 10-hour mindset to closer to the 20 hours. And this is something where down the line, I have had no problem going back to clients. We actually just did this with a client. We put on a 2 day event for them. And originally they had a videographer and team that was recording their own virtual calls, like Zoom calls, and doing the edits.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2-3 weeks out from the event, they were like, we want you to do this.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I now instantly had to add 2 editors on board to cover this stuff because I was fully booked already. And the other person that was mostly managing this project with me was pretty much fully booked on the same gigs. So we basically said, we went back to the client and said, hey, I realized that you already paid a deposit and we agreed on a certain number, but because you are asking us to add on all of this editing and it's a rush job and it's last minute, we need to bring on more resources. We're estimating this to need another 40 hours worth of work. So that alone was another $4,000, 40 hours at $100. So don't feel like you have to get this exact number on the pre-production side, but I think that sort of like 10 to 20 hours per day based on complexity is kind of just a rough from what I've experienced. And obviously every project's, your mileage may vary.
No, man, I love
So
it
I'm going to
because,
take,
yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna just take a note on that, but feel free to keep going with what you were gonna say.
No, I love it because I think the impetus behind this too is like the big thing is not leaving money on the table, right? So a lot of times, what I'll do as a video producer, um, I will I'll ask, hey, is there a range that you're working in? So I allow the client to anchor first, and then I can give them, um, if they tell me no, well, this could be anywhere between five and $50,000 or whatever. Oh, 50,000 is too much. Well, what are you thinking? Oh, more along the lines of,
Yeah,
then they fill in the blanks. So it really is
yeah,
helpful in that regard. This one is a great client. They have a high trust in us, and I don't want to exploit that either. It's more
sure.
so like understanding, you know, am I doing right by them with this sort of quote, which when I put everything together, and at the end of the day, we have to be profitable, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah,
that's, that's how we continue to serve others. If we're not profitable, then we're going to be out of business and be watching everybody else do their thing.
yeah,
Um, so I think for me, let me tell you my breakdown, and um, I have another kind of production calculator that I use versus
yeah.
what we have in the group. So I
And tell
budget.
me just where you are with pre-pro, because I don't want to,
No, this
you
is
know,
great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my invoice amount is $4,178. That is accounting for, and I want to make sure I have the right thing. Yeah, this is the right
and
one.
this is just pre-production, correct?
Pre-production,
Okay,
because I'm taking into account. I'm not going to be going. Um, I think in the earlier part of this call, maybe it didn't get captured already, but it's a 4.5 hour drive
correct.
port to port from where I'm at to that location. So one of two things happens. I have to hire someone that's local, which I have actually talked to someone local that potentially could be doing a highlight video for us when if
Okay,
if we win this. So it'd be no big thing for me to send them over there and pay them like $100, like you were talking about earlier. The other is kind of our tech day, which will be the day before the event, and getting acclimated and getting everything, going through everything that day, understanding what all that needs to happen, compounding that by the number of team members we have.
yep.
So that's how I came up with that. And then
But
like
I guess I would usually put this like production for me usually is arrival to departure. So even though the tech day
mm,
is before the event, I think I just categorize it a little bit differently.
okay.
So I would probably be closer to the 4,100 number once I included in how many people. If you want to throw at me real quick, how many people are going to be there on that tech day?
Yep. So it would
And how
be
many hours is that tech day?
yep, great question, because I was thinking probably around 6 hours, if that, for tech day.
Okay.
We would set everything up. There's nothing really to run through other than making sure we're getting signals from cameras,
Mhm.
and then building if we need to run a show with graphics and everything, because there's a lot
Sure.
of teams that compete. So there could be anywhere between, I don't know, at least I would say at least 100, if not more, teams competing that day. So um, let's see. So I have myself down as a director because I want to be able to,
Hmm.
give myself that designation, but I'm really doing client management.
Yep.
Um, uh, I have down a single DP. Both cameras would be unmanned, but we'd have a
Hmm.
DP just in case for anything. An assistant director who I'm kind of categorizing as the the producer for the show. Um, oh no, let me take that back. Sorry, I have a DP, but that's for the highlight video that I was talking about because we're trying to build value in with this client, but also generate more revenue. Does that make
Would
sense?
they be working that full setup day or just
No,
on the
no,
event?
no, just the day itself. So coming back to
I'm
it,
gonna move that over. Yeah.
yeah, my bad, my bad. So let me go
No,
back
you're good.
here.
I'm just keeping track of you here. So I have you down as basically a director and a producer on setup day. Do you have any other extra hands, any PAs or anybody else that you would be paying to be there just on the setup day?
Yep. So it would be the camera operator,
Hmm.
because again, he would be traveling from our part of the state to there, and then I have a production assistant and the like live stream producer. So she would be in charge of the whole show the day of, along with someone
So
else
you've
that would
got
assisting her. So I think,
four.
yeah. Well, let's see.
Okay.
It'd be myself. Okay, myself. Um,
You,
I'm
producer, camera op, and PA.
camera up. Let's see, myself. So that's one. Sorry, dude.
No,
Myself.
take your time.
Jill is our live stream producer,
Hmm.
camera operator, and I have that down as two, but we don't need them both tech day. Um, PA, which
But
would
you will
probably
have two camera ops on the day of.
correct.
Okay, got it.
And then PA, which more than likely would be my eldest daughter. She's 14, so she's great when it comes to, because of the run of show and there's so many teams competing,
Yeah.
making sure we've got the graphics up at the right point. You know, she's working alongside Jill, the producer, on stuff like that.
And is she
Um,
there setup day too, or just
yep,
event day?
yep. She'd be
Setup day
there
too. Okay,
setup day.
so
Yep,
four people setup day: director, which is you, producer, camera op, and PA. Now, event day is all of those, but you're gaining a second camera operator and
second
you're
a
gaining.
DP for a highlight video.
Okay, so there aren't two camera ops on event day. It's one camera operator for the live stream, but one DP for the highlight video.
No, two camera ops. I do have down just in case.
Okay,
Um,
but they don't need to be there on setup day, just one of them.
correct,
Okay,
correct.
so I've got numbers wise looking at the setup day, and I won't forget travel. I'm going to make a note for travel in here. So you told me the setup day you're roughing it in at about 6 hours. I still consider that an 8 hour full day
Okay,
because the reason why we've started to approach these this way is because if I hire you, right, and regardless of whether or not you just drove 4 hours to get here,
right.
but if I hire you to go live at, let's say, noon, and you get here to set up at 10 a.m., and you're live from noon to 3, and by the time you pack up and leave, it's like 4, 4:30. So you got here at 10 a.m., you're out by 4:30, you're gone 10 to 5. You could not have possibly been
Done
hired
anything
for
else?
any
Yep.
other project. And it's not that it's the client's problem that you couldn't have been hired for that. It's that you need to account for income for that because you need to make sure that you're getting paid for a full day's worth of work. So
Yep.
it's not this thing where it's like, oh, we need to put this on the client. It's their responsibility. It's no, it's your responsibility as the business owner to say, hey, I got to make sure I'm paid for a full day. So
Right.
what I would be doing is setup day, I'm just going to call it 8 hours, and then
Great.
event day is longer than that, right?
Correct. It's 12 hours. We'll be there closer to probably 14, with, if we have to break down and set up from tech day.
Right.
If we don't, then we're coming in at least an hour before, and then we're leaving, an hour after, because we're packing up and
Sure.
all that. So yeah.
So here's where my numbers would probably break down. And this is really the only difference here with your 4178 number is just that you kind of bundled in your setup day with your pre-production. So I would probably be calling pre-production just a flat $2,000, basically 20 hours, all the consulting calls, setup planning, $100 an hour,
Okay.
um, flat fee 2,000. If you're spending more on internet or other things, then obviously that expense gets added into there later.
Mm-hmm.
So where the 2,100 additional that you had comes in is on this setup day. So What I've been billing for director now is, which is pretty much always me that I'm billing for at this, is 150 an hour.
Okay.
So 150 at 8 hours, so that's $1,200. The producer, because it's still their responsibility to run a really good, clean show, I'm usually putting that at 125
Okay.
an hour. So that's 1,000. And then you had one camera op planned for the setup day. For camera ops, I'm usually billing, and remember these numbers can tweak here and there, right?
Yep.
Like if the
Absolutely.
producer were one of my right hand guys, like I'd put 135 an hour instead of 125.
Hmm.
Camera ops, you can do about 100 an hour at 8 hours, so that's another $800. And then the PA usually goes down closer to like between like 75 to 90. So like especially if it's your daughter, but at the same time, this is where you'll get some wiggle room to make up some money. So let's just say we call this one 75 an hour.
Yep.
And so 75 times 8, that gives us 600. So in total, we're looking at 1,200 for the director, 1,000 on the producer, 800 for the camera op, and then 600 for the PA. And this is not what you're paying them. This is what the company, is charging.
Charging. Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and for me, that's 3,600 total. And so you can see where a large part of that additional 2,100 comes into play within this number
Hmm.
that we talked about in pre-pro. And then
Yep.
event day, this is where things get interesting, because what we've started to do as well is when you have an event day that goes this long, for people like you and I, it's not unusual to do a 14-hour day or a 16-hour day and still have to drive home 4 hours we know the industry, we put in the time. What I'm
It's so funny
finding,
because I at the end of this, dude, I'm like, no, this is like whatever it was, whatever I told them, 4 hotel rooms for 3 nights, like,
yeah,
the Friday night, Saturday, 2 nights, Friday night, Saturday night, and then I'll drive out Sunday morning because there's no way
yeah.
after a 12 and a half hour stream.
You forgot to include the massage therapist in there. That's a line item.
The masseuse, right, right.
You think I'm joking, but I have definitely booked like massages and stuff to like reward myself after gigs like this. And you
Dude,
really,
that's
for a gig like this, you really should find a way as soon as you have that deposit and the gig is booked, find the reward to put that light at the end of the tunnel for a project like this.
mm,
Um, on event day, what gets funny is that we tend to look at anything over 10 hours as overtime. And we alert the clients, look, this is a very, very long day. And part of the overtime and being able to charge time and a half will also help you to include if you ever had to buy multiple meals for your crew.
yeah,
So
no doubt.
if you need to be able to shell out breakfast, coffees, lunch, dinner, snacks before the drive home, our thing is milkshakes. We all find like Chick-fil-A or something nearby and we just
Nice.
as a team get milkshakes.
Yep.
But like this is where that money is kind of included and worked into it. And that way I don't have to put another line item for meals and have the client nitpick on my amounts. It's just kind of built into the number. So
Right, right.
again, same numbers for director, 150 an hour, producer, again, 125. Two camera ops this time, so at 100 each, I'm just going to call it 200 per hour. PA, again, 75. And then you had a DP for the highlight video. So that's one where like you'll have to talk to them on their
Yep.
fees and what that is. And it's harder to price that out. But I would assume if you've got somebody good, you probably pay them about $100 an hour. You could probably get a little cheaper than that. I don't know your area as well, but if you could get somebody at 60 to 75 bucks an hour and that's good enough for you, I'd still just bill it at $100 an
No doubt. No doubt.
hour. So the first 12 hours, right? So 150 for the director times 12, that gives us 1,800. 125 times 12, that gives us 1,500. 200 times 12, that's going to be the 2,400 for the two camera ops. Your PA, 75 times 12, It's 900. And then your DP, another $1,200 for, or I did that by 12. You can do it 10 or 12 hours. And again, I'm going to go back. I know this is going back on what I said about the whole overtime thing.
No
I
worries.
think it's up to you to determine how many hours you're going to consider a full day. Um, I think that, it could be 10, it could be 12. I usually would not go as low as 8 because I'm thinking about like between lunch breaks and everything, like 8 hours isn't really like, I would go probably 10 or 12. So if I'm saying 12 just for these numbers and purposes, we essentially have another 2 hours to make up at time and a half for each person. So for your director at 150 an hour times 2 hours times time and a half, that's 450. For your producer, that's going to be 375. For your two camera ops, which are $100 an hour each, that's $600. Your PA, 75 bucks an hour, 225. And your DP, which again you may not need to keep for that full time
Right.
because setup
We
breakdown, like
just,
they're probably
yep, we
there.
just need them to capture the highlights
Yeah.
of dancing, which is separate from our
So
live
if that's
streaming
the
cameras.
case, I wouldn't bill overtime on that one. I would
No
just
doubt.
call it a
And
day.
he's local. And if I tell him, hey, we need, I think 4 hours for a 3-minute highlight video should be good enough. Like that's my thinking. Like I just need you here from 8 to noon or something, and we'll cut you loose. And then if you want to do the edit,
Yeah, and
it's
anything
X
else
amount
is
of
extra,
dollars.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Like, so I'm just doing the quick math on adding both the regular time at, let's just call it 12 hours for this purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and then the overtime. Uh, my math, hopefully being correct, is coming out to 94.50 for the event day,
Okay.
and then we haven't talked about travel or lodging.
Yep.
Um, Travel days, I just traveled to Iowa for a live stream,
Yeah, I
and
saw that, dude. That was
I
great.
yeah, that was a fun event. For that one, I just billed a flat fee of $500 because I basically said this is essentially a full day that I can't work. If it's local-ish like yours, where you're still in state, but it is a few hours, it's really up to you to bring that number down if you choose to.
Mm-hmm.
If I were just being conservative because I want to have this padding built in, I'm just going to call it 500 bucks for the travel day. If I'm coming in like the day before that tech and setup day.
Yep.
If I were driving in early, like the day of, maybe I'd take it down to like 300 bucks. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to call it 300 for right now.
Cool. Cool.
Each way. So let's do 600 total. And then lodging, again, one of those, your mileage may vary. So it really will depend on what hotel room is run, but it's pretty easy to go into Google or to a hotel's website and get a rough idea on a nightly fee. So uh, I don't know what it was for you, but I'm going to just guess. I'm going to just call it, would you do 3 rooms or 4 rooms?
I think, let me go to my proposal real quick. I think I did 4.
So I'm just going to call it for numbers' sake, 4 rooms at, I'm going to call it 150 a night. You may get cheaper. You might want to do an Airbnb. We've certainly done that before.
Hmm.
So I'm just calling that 4 rooms, 150 a night. So that's going to be another $600. And then how many of your team members will also be traveling
That's a great
and have
question.
to, your daughter obviously will not have to drive,
Right.
but
Right.
does your director, does your producer, does your camera op, are those guys local to you and still doing the 4 hour trek?
Yeah. So producer and camera op would be local to me. And
Okay.
then, no, excuse me. Only myself, the PA, and camera op would be local to me.
Okay.
Producer times 2, because with such a long day too, I, you tell me your thoughts, but I was thinking twofold. One is we give our producer the opportunity to like literally like take a break, right? um,
Yeah.
so bringing in another person that can get in for a lesser amount from out east. So both of them are out east. One is in New York, New Jersey area, and the other person's in the Boston area. So
Okay.
Boston area would be our main. The other one's kind of like relief, if you will. Both very capable, sort of thing. But yes, they would have that travel day. Ideally, on the tech day, as we're driving, they're traveling into the same place.
Gotcha.
We all hit the ground pretty much at the same time. Maybe us a little ahead because we can drive, set our schedule
Yeah.
that way, and then have set up ready to go, and then they Uber over. So yeah.
So I would definitely be billing for that. So if we're saying it's 600 bucks for you, I would essentially call it, a $500 or $600 flat fee per person that you're billing on travel.
Okay.
Um, let's just say I'm going to just call it 500 bucks just for numbers to be easier. Let's say it's you and two other people that we need to account for, so three in total.
Mm-hmm.
So 1,500 bucks on the travel day. Um, what is happening as far as post production and delivery goes? What do you have to deliver in the end?
Yeah. So we don't have to deliver anything other than what I had already asked this client, like, do you have a partner to produce a highlight video? Because they had one last year that they were
Okay.
very unhappy with. In essence, we took that, we put it into Apple Motion, like an Apple Motion template for $59.
Call it a day.
Snazzed it up big time because it was like garbage. Um, and they love that. And they're like, and I know that from my recollection from years ago, knowing someone that did work for them, it's funny. It's like one of these niches, like they'll spend money on what they value. So it seems like
Right.
the highlight film and live stream is stuff that they value. Um, so that being said, it's the live stream day, all
Hmm.
the technical aspects of that, and no deliverables afterwards. It's just a single
Just that
stream.
highlight video.
Yep. And then the highlight video, single stream day. That's it. Unless I look at a way to upsell that. And if people want to download I forget what they call them, their block,
Okay.
you can buy this block for $10 and we'll open it up for you to download or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I would save that off the invoice for something that could be like determined down the line. But
Right, right.
definitely the highlight edit, I would still be throwing in at least 500-600 bucks if you're having that guy do it, or even if you're doing it. And that could be as simple as, like you said, a template where you throw it out to an animator on Upwork or Fiverr and you buy a $50 template and you're good. But at least 600 bucks. This is also an easy place to pad it too, right? So like if you were doing a longer edit, it could be closer to $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's most of what I'd be looking at for this. There's obviously going to be some things that we talked about that might vary as you gain more info about the venue. Like we mentioned at the top, internet or renting any other stuff. Um, the only other things that I haven't included in how I would quote this out is essentially just a daily equipment fee. And so, as you know, with the calculator that I use, we kind of go down the line. Okay, how many switchers, encoders,
Mm-hmm.
cameras, everything. So again, I'm just gonna kind of rough estimate this one because I don't have that sheet in front of me at the moment. But for a full day, you could easily be pulling in, another $1,000 to $2,000 on the equipment,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the range of stuff you're bringing in, right? So like, if you don't really handle sound and you're just taking a feed, you could bring that number down. If you're not really handling the lighting and that's like up to the venue, you could bring
Correct.
that
Yep.
number down.
Yep. Yep.
Bare minimum on like smaller gigs, when I say smaller, I mean like a 2 to 3 hour event. I'm at least charging 3 to 500 for equipment. Um, higher on the higher side though, 1,000 to 2,000. It really just depends. Like we've had gigs where like maybe we're only bringing two or three cameras, but we're also bringing lighting, we're also bringing a teleprompter, we're also bringing
Yep.
confidence monitors, and so like that's where that number is going to start to go higher. So I'm just going to say equipment wise, I'm just going to call it another $1,000 even. And for anyone watching this, again, this is very ballpark, but just kind of estimating
But
it.
absolutely, but
Um,
super helpful too, because this is real world like examples. Like, you
yeah,
know, a
this is pretty
client,
close to what we would have.
I literally talked to her on Thursday out of the blue just to check in. Um, Thanksgiving, I sent her a text like, "Hey, so thankful for you guys," like that sort of thing, like really thinking of you. And then boom, she calls me up. "Hey, it was great to hear from you. Are you interested in doing our live stream this year?" I'm like, "Whoa, okay, sure, yeah. All right, I need this, you know, over the weekend because I'm meeting with
Yeah,
all the coaches on Sunday." I'm like, okay, so this is real world. Like sometimes you'll get something, a
yeah.
gift dropped in your lap, and you know, my whole point is like, man, am I off, or is this like, as you do more of this than honestly I do, and probably anybody else in the group for that matter, is having your expertise kind of look and kind of proof and say, yeah, I think for this sort of project, it should be X amount of dollars. And then I can feel like,
Mhm.
yes, I did do
Yeah,
that right. You know, like,
yeah.
yeah. So,
So, and I want to go back to real quick a point that you had brought up. One was that this is the time of year to start reaching out to people. Maybe wait till January, like first week of January, but this is the time where I will go back through all of my invoices from the past year. And that's just through my software. So I use Wave. Most people know that it's waveapps.com. I just go through all of my invoices and I literally take a post-it note and just write out every client I worked with for the year, and then I sit there and just craft emails to them. Hey, how's it going? I know New Year's starting. We had so much fun working with you on XYZ project last year. Do you have anything coming up? You know, we're starting to book through February and March. We'd love to get a call on the calendar if you have anything in the first half of this year.
mm,
And that alone could lead to, 10 phone calls on the calendar. And you might have just set yourself up for like a bare minimum what your business needs to earn for the year just off of that.
no doubt.
The second point, though, that you brought up too was that basically the pricing on this stuff can vary. Um, and so what I found was I have looked at the pricing over the last year for a lot of our gigs and determined a rough number so that when people ask me, hey, how much does this cost? The number that we're now determining is a per finished hour of the event
And I love
because
that
it is
because I think you
way,
put that in the group or you put it in the
yeah,
course or something. And that's what sparked this because I'm like, dude, 12, potentially 12 and a half hours of finished live stream
right.
time, like bare
And it's
minimum.
easier for someone to justify that number, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
they don't realize, like, if you talk to a client right now, they're not going to think, oh, you have a setup day with a director, a producer, a camera operator, a PA. That's $3,600 right there. Or, oh, 20 hours of pre-production, all the emails, the calls. They don't think about that. They just think of, well, my event's only 2 hours long. Why does it cost this much?
Right.
And
Right.
so if you can go in and say, we have found that our range is X to Y. So what we're doing now more recently has been our range is approximately $1,500 to $5,000 per finished hour of the event, depending on complexity.
Mm-hmm.
And we leave it at that because not only does it leave us a lot of leeway if we need to up the budget depending on what they need, but it's also not scaring away the smaller projects that are, oh, well, we only have a 2 hour event that might fall in the $1,500 per hour category. And so, when I come in with an estimate of $3,200 for like a 2 hour event, it's really not that big of a deal for them. And if I come in under that, they're like, oh my gosh, he's giving me a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we've been doing now is like, I don't always give away that number unless they ask because I don't want someone to think 5,000 per finished hour on a smaller gig and get scared away. But if
Mm-hmm.
they do ask, I'll kind of explain that and take a minute to say, look, that's for bigger events where we're bringing on teams and that is not the type of event that you're talking about. So
Right. Right.
that's one point I really wanted to drive home was that ever since we started doing that has been making it so much easier for the clients to justify the cost of the event. Um, Let me do a quick recap of numbers wise what I've
Yeah.
written
Great.
down.
Great.
So I had pre-production, obviously calculated it just a little bit different than yours. I had $2,000 essentially, not including any site survey or any additional gear rental. So if you determine later, you'll add in the internet. If you needed any other stuff as well, that would of course come in there.
Yeah, and that's
The
great
setup,
because I left that as an optional for the client. So
yeah,
pop-up Wi-Fi I've got down as well. Last year we charged them 2,500. The units only cost 1,000, so I had
right.
incredible markup on that. But they're large units and they had to get drop shipped to each area. So just coordinating that as well. Anyway,
Yeah,
this year I dropped it by 1,000 because I don't want to not have a backup, honestly.
sure.
So still making a profit off of it, but for this type of event, we're charging 1,500 optional if you choose to go with it or not. And last year they were very happy that they did. So
So let me throw that in here too. So I'm just going to say 1,500 for one pop-up Wi-Fi unit,
yep,
right?
yep, yep.
So I'm going to throw that in here just to make sure my numbers are good. So pre-production plus the rental, basically $3,500. The setup day or the tech day, if we're looking at a director, two, a producer, three, a camera op, and four, a PA. Calling it 8 hours, maybe 6 hours, which again is going to allow you to have more profit just come in because you don't have to pay them for that.
Right.
$3,600 total is what that came out to for me.
Great.
The event day, so this is where it's the tricky one. We're calling it 14 hours. We're assuming anything over 12 hours, we're going to charge it time and a half for overtime. So again, director and producer, this time two camera operators, a PA, and then you have the DP that's doing the highlight video. That one I clocked in at $9,450.
Great.
The travel day, this was a number that we just kind of roughed out, right? And so if you're going by the federal numbers, I think it's something like if they're driving, it's like 56 cents a mile or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that number changes every year. But, you could do the math on that and pay out your contractors that. We were just calling it a flat fee of $500 per person with three people traveling. So $1,500. This is not including any flights if you're flying somebody in.
Correct.
That's
Yep.
kind of
Separate.
separate from the quote, but
Yep.
usually clients kind of understand that some of that's involved. So, hotel, 4 nights or I guess 4 rooms,
4
right?
rooms, 2 nights. Yep.
4 rooms, 2 nights. So I had 4 rooms. Let me redo the math on this. 2 nights. I am just throwing out 150 a night for the pricing. Obviously, some people you'll find cheaper places. You might Airbnb, but if I'm just throwing out it, to estimate 150 bucks a night at eight, because it's four rooms, 2 nights, $1,200 on that one. Post production, so we threw $1,000 in there for editing that highlight reel, regardless of whether that's the animation template or having that DP edit that for you, or you or someone on your team editing that. We're just throwing $1,000 there. The way I came up with that number is I usually bill $100 an hour for editing, so I'm saying 10 hours on a highlight reel. And then we said for equipment for the day, it was a range, but I'm just throwing in $1,000 for the day, since it sounds like you won't have to bring any fancy lighting or audio equipment. So
Correct.
I'm going to do my math there. If you have anything to add to that while I'm adding this up, let me know.
Yeah, I think I also just left a buffer too. So we built in margins and we adjusted margins for things that we felt like, yeah, bare minimum for us is 30% margin on anything. And max is 60%. So we like to hit anywhere between that. The sweet spot is like 50% overall for a project cost. The only caveat that I left open, and you were great about this, even I think before you came up with the course, but when you need to monetize those streams for your client, right? So what I mean by that is like people need to log into a platform and watch this. And in this case, we can't just go YouTube and I've heard varying degrees of success with Vimeo. Like if you get too many people bandwidth wise.
Vimeo
And
has not been my favorite.
yeah, I think you were the one that told me it, plus someone else.
Yeah.
So for something like this, we need something obviously rock solid, but then the hosting aspect of things and ticketing for live streaming. So I left some padding in there too. And I'm talking to a potential partner uh, that does app and um, yeah, can do like an Amazon app as well as an app on your phone. Real easy for people to be able to watch. So I'm going to be talking to them. I don't know what that'll amount to. Our past partners were a headache as well. I was losing my hair over that because they were our ticketing and hosting partner, but you don't do like one part of their user interface correctly, and some of those streams were like off the rails right from jump because it was the wrong embed or whatever. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, sorry, just
No, you're good.
thinking through. Okay, who's going to be our partner for um, this sort of project for hosting and ticketing? So that's a big question mark right now. And I know
I've
you.
liked what I've seen with ViewStub and the guys over there. Because I got to meet Dylan, who created ViewStub, and I've been able to talk to them a little bit. I honestly have referred them to a couple people who have used them and had a good experience. I just haven't
Mm,
had a particular event that needed to use it. Um, I've had a couple of clients where they've used other companies like Big Marker, which I've streamed to without a problem.
okay.
I think there's one called like Blue Jeans, I want to say. Another one we used was Whova, WHOVA.
Okay.
For that one, they just managed like the ticketing and event registration, but our event was streamed just like inside of a Zoom. But the
Mm,
users that registered could still like get their Zoom link and register like through the platform, and
got it.
it still could track them and do stuff afterwards. So um, all of these platforms, for anyone that's watching this, just take an RTMP feed. So you just need an encoder, whether it's an 810 Mini Pro or any other encoder that can send out an RTMP feed, and you're good. So I've added up my numbers here. I will tell you what I arrived at, and then I'm curious what you arrived at. The
Yeah,
number
this
that
is
I arrived at doesn't include some of the things that we talked about. So this
okay.
is not including platform fees, any fee for you, because again, that's
And
something that your
I'll be
mileage is going to
back charged
vary.
absolutely, and I kind of back
Yeah,
charge that like here's fee per ticket plus credit
right.
card processing because it is a digital product. It's not, even though your organization may be a nonprofit, let's say, which this one is, but we still
Yeah.
got to charge the end user sales tax on this rental sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's this number doesn't include that. This number doesn't include any additional rentals. We included $1,500 for the Wi-Fi, the pop-up Wi-Fi. But if there were anything else that popped up in between that time, and just any other expenses. So if there were any other travel-related things, like you need a flight for your producer, that is not considered in this number.
Wonderful.
So the number that I arrived at, and I'm going to give you two numbers actually, because you had talked about I like that you look for that margin, right? I think you were saying somewhere between like that 30 to 50%.
Right.
So if we're doing my math here, so if I added up my numbers correctly, which hopefully I did, um, based on everything we talked about, the number I arrived at is 21,250. And then if I were, I saw that expression, so I want to know what that means in a second.
Yep.
And then if I were padding this more based on your 30% rule, and this is, I think, a good lesson for anyone that's watching this that may be starting as a live streamer. I don't feel that it is a requirement to pad this, because we have padded pretty
We
much all of our prices so
exactly.
far. But if you are running a bigger team, like let's say this director, this DP, this camera op, these are all like internal company employees, that's where I would be going back in and taking this number and saying, you know what, let's take our 30% as well and tack this on. And so our 30% of that 21,250 is 63.75. So if I were a bigger agency with employees billing it this way, that total would actually be $27,625.
Awesome. Awesome.
So this kind of gives you your range here of essentially 21,250, which is where I would price this at, just with the info I'm given. And then, of course, on the agency side, you get another 6 grand. So that is the range that I would be giving the client on this too, because I think that 6 grand is also going to cover airfare, hotel, other expense stuff that might pop
Dude,
up.
this was so helpful. This was so helpful. And let me tell you why I did that like fist bump if you're down with it right now. So my pricing, and I'll tell you exactly what I did. I normally put everything in like one bucket, pre-production, production, and any post-production as its own like line item. I don't get into the minutia of um, minutes or what have you,
Sure.
although we do cover hours, that sort of thing. So I'll run through this with you real quick. One shoot day of up to 12 hours at this state competition held in this part of the state on this date with dual camera HD camera package from fixed locations in the center to cover competitions, 2 camera operators, 2 live stream producers, 1 live stream director, live stream equipment package, which is what we were talking about, like our equipment, rentals, which is not including the pop-up Wi-Fi. And what we did, and we kind of stumbled upon because of the platforms that we used on our last big one, we were able to offer instant replay capabilities for these judges to look
Cool.
for infractions. And it was a happy accident and they loved it. They were like over the moon with it. So now I put in big bold letters in this instant replay capabilities for judges and insurance coverage, which is people want to know, oh, are you insured? Yes, absolutely. So I
Mm-hmm.
just put that in there as kind of like a hot
Sure.
tip. Like we're not just fly by night.
Yeah.
We'll also apply lower thirds to identify the participating teams. That's bullet point number 1. Bullet point number 2, 1 highlight video for up to 3 minutes in length from footage taken on site, not from our competition coverage cameras, but separate camera operator and camera setup, letting them know you're not just getting the super wide view
Right.
that's whatever.
Someone set up a camera and walked away.
Exactly, exactly. 1 site portal for ticketing and hosting of live streams for the day of the stream in 1080p high definition. Does not include any credit card or platform fees associated. So I'm letting them know that'll be above and beyond anything. Intro bumper for state, which was repurposed and it'll be updated from last year's. And we produced something to add value to them. Continued use of our best practices video for coaches to demonstrate how to use an iPad to capture footage. This was back during the pandemic where everybody was submitting everything that way. And so we actually did a tutorial and they wound up putting it on their site. I thought they were just
Nice.
going to share it. So that's that. And that figure came out to, on my end, $26,053. So
Look at that.
I'm so happy, dude, walking through this with you that we were that close to your figures. That does take into account our team members flying in from the Northeast. So I think on my calculator, I budgeted, and one of them is kind of snobby. Um, I'm just being facetious, but she likes to fly first class, and I tell her I can cover up to like $350, and then whatever you want to do past that point, that's on you.
It's up to you. Yeah.
So airfare for 2, totaling about $700, $800. My travel days differed from you, but I also built that into the total project costs.
Sure.
It was like $250 per travel day on that, and then hotel I was at $400. I don't know why I have it so low. We're not staying at like a Roach motel. Um, and then Uber fees, right? Like something I didn't think about. We got
Mm-hmm.
people coming in from the airport. I don't want to run out to grab them. I don't want anybody else to do that. Like we want
Yeah.
to focus on what's happening
Just get right here.
at the
Yeah.
location, right? And then everybody comes to us, and then we'll all get to the hotel after. So overnight stay I had down as 800, which is included in this. So my total is 26,853, not including the bonded cellular, which I had down as 1,500. So if they click that, then the pricing goes to $28,353. So
Yep. And I had 27,625. So
that's awesome, dude. Yeah, this is confirmation because I was so nervous. I'm like, I sent it and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But all things considered, they're bringing us in to be their partner on this and to give a
right.
rock solid experience. So I was pleasantly, you know, for my first time doing a major live stream like we did last time, although it was a big headache when we did our regionals and I had one of my team members with the one that flew in from Boston. We figured everything out. Our stream was the cleanest. You know, we were delayed by, I think, 30 minutes, but then we made up the time through the stream. And now we learned our lessons. Now we can come back and say, cool. Because this is, again, this is our $53,000 contract from last year.
Right.
And I think for me personally, I'm comparing, well, that was four sites one
You got
day.
way more going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
four sites one day. Um, the other was okay. We did another in a hybrid event, and then right after that, we did a sim live that was 7.5 hours long. That we had all the footage on a hard drive, and we used software to trigger each scene to come up, and I could just rest for 7.5 hours until it was over. So this one is different in that, again, 12.5 hours, and we're doing opposite ends of this arena to
Yeah.
film these routines. We got to be on top of everything, and it's every 3 minutes is going to be a new routine, and or we need to do instant replay for these judges because they're looking for an infraction or what have you. So cool,
Yeah.
dude. Super
Yeah.
helpful, man.
And and one thing I just realized too is, my numbers don't actually consider a second producer to swap out,
Mm.
you know, on the day of the live event. So that right there was easily, if we're including overtime hours, another 1800,
So we're
1875.
we're right
So
lockstep.
yeah,
Your
yeah,
figures and
and that
mine.
was just because I just didn't have that in there because we didn't talk about that until after I threw the numbers in. So I mean, we would have been right in the neighborhood of 23. Essentially, the range is 23 to 27K, and if you're working with a client that's already paid 50 grand and they see 27K, I would not be nervous at all because I think that they've already said yes to something almost twice, just under twice that price. They know the value you bring to the table. Hopefully they can see past what happened and the struggles that you went through
Oh,
because
absolutely.
of
Because
the
I
team you had
secured.
worked with.
Yep, I secured. We gave money back to them. So even though it was 53,000, I think we gave them another. I think we discounted it by 1,000. We gave them a refund for 1,000, and then on top of it, our last location, they were saying again the same experience that we had previously on the four sites, being sworn up and down that we would have access to the internet there and it wouldn't be an issue. We
Mm-hmm.
got there, it was an issue, and it didn't matter because I had already told them as a backup, I'm going ahead and renting a pop-up Wi-Fi unit at no expense to you. This is something that we're
Cool.
absorbing. And they were just like over the moon because when they got there, they're like, how's things going? I'm like, I'm so glad we did this. This is the reason why. And so it
Yeah.
reaffirmed our expertise too, knowing we're not monkeying around. Like we don't want to get here and then all of a sudden we can't stream because, the IT department is not recognizing an encoder, is not recognizing our computers, whatever. So because our setup it was direct to an encoder and the encoder was going and giving us like a tape delay up to 2 minutes. So if anything went down, we could figure it out within 2 minutes and be caught up to speed. But we didn't need that. So yeah.
Good stuff. That is
Uh,
huge. I mean, the numbers don't lie. I think if anything, this is proof of where my numbers are coming from. And I think it's really important that before we close out what we're talking about here, I think it's crucial to explain one of the biggest excuses that I hear is, oh, those prices don't work in my area or it's different here. I'm in Maryland. You're not in Maryland.
I'm not. I'm in Wisconsin, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm East Coast, Northeast pricing, just outside DC. This is the same pricing I would be using in DC. So, for and a lot of people think that DC pricing is more expensive and more like California style pricing, which I've certainly seen it be that way, especially compared to Baltimore. But if I'm billing for that and you're also getting around the same numbers, then I think this just goes to show that it really is not about the location. At least, at least in the United States, I can understand where there might be some differences internationally, but within the United States, I think this just shows that it's not about prices being different in different areas. It's about, this is a normal fee to charge for things like
Right.
this,
And
and it's
and
just getting used to it.
absolutely. And that was the nervousness in me because the first time I just went, pow, 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 pow. And I'm like, I put it in that was before you came up with a budget calculator. Um, but I went through mine and I'm like, 53,000. Oh my gosh. All right, let me submit this. And boom, we got it. Well, it was 43,000. So to explain, I think, let me do my math here real quick. 1,500 times
Yeah. And while you
2,500.
do that, I'll just share with everybody that 50,000, for you before that 50,000, your ceiling was 20,000, right?
Yep.
And so what happened was that 20,000 came down to here and then the 50,000 was here. And that's why it was like, oh my God, this is not something we've done before.
No doubt. New personal record, right? Like any of us, like if you hit something. So I just did the math too. And this is something that others can kind of think through. And you've done a great job of it. Like, how do you monetize other aspects of your production? So thankfully we won't have any posts on this, etc. But I went through and the pop-up Wi-Fi units. So initially I got a sweet deal. I think the CEO gave them to us all 4 units for our original stream for like 1,000 or 1,500. Now this is ridiculous because they price them at 1,500 each, but she loved what we were doing and wanted to kind of use this as a case study. I'm like, great. So they charge us 1,000. This is what we charge the client just for the pop-up Wi-Fi unit. So
Internet
so
at four locations.
we were able to make money back and be able to put it back in their pockets without it being detrimental to our business because of faulty issues with our partners or et cetera. Like it really,
That's real smart.
yeah. So things like that where you can feel like, hey, if something does go down, like, hey, no skin off of our back or whatever the saying is, like, we've got you. Here's a $2,000 discount. We appreciate you guys. Like,
Yeah.
so being able to manage your business effectively and also find those ways where you can be like, yep, we can please them and also still be profitable at the end of this,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So, dude, thank you
And you
so
know what you
much.
do with $500 of that is my favorite. I learned about this company from my promo products guy, which if anybody needs his info, just let me know. And he directly orders these for me. But there's a company that I really like to order from called Batch and Bodega. And what you do is after an event like this, because you know that you've got all that extra on top, right? And I get it, that's profit for you. But if you took $500 out of that, however much, 7 grand, whatever you're pocketing, right? If you took $500 and you go to Batch and Bodega and you get the name and address, mailing address of the top 3 or 4 people you were working with on that project. So your client, if the client had like an executive board or whatever, and you buy them these packages that they have, Batch and Bodega does like I cannot scream their name to the rooftops enough. They have all these like batches that they call. And so you can customize them because you can custom brand it with your company's logo and your company's image, but you'll be able to send them like boxes of brownies. You'll be able to send them like pretzel and mustard snacky type, and like all these different themed boxes. as a way of saying thank you. And on top of that, they put a card in there where you can put a custom message, but the card, when they open it up, is going to have your company's logo on it. It's going to be your company's colors, but you're going to
Ooh.
send these to them. And it could be after the event. It could be around this time when Christmas coming up, a little happy holidays reminder, especially if you're trying to butter them up a little bit because you just sent them another estimate for $28,000. But to spend that 500 bucks on the client, I have had people rave about this stuff to the point where they actually started sending it to other people. So like I sent a brownie box to someone and they actually sent it along to someone else that I also work with. So it's like I gave them some grief. I was like, you can't send, that's my thing to send them, you know, but this stuff goes a long way.
Bro,
And to
this is
drop an extra
such a hot
500
tip.
bucks, yeah, it's nothing to drop another $500 because you billed for the director at 150 an hour, but you paid the director 125 an hour. You billed for the producer at 125 an hour, but you paid them 100 an hour. You billed for the PA 75 bucks an hour, but it's your daughter and you give her 20 bucks allowance for the week and take her out for ice cream afterwards and she's a happy camper.
No doubt.
But like, this money all adds up in the end to the point where, especially on a gig like this, you are left with thousands of dollars left over that is pure profit. But if you reinvest 500 bucks of that in a couple of these boxes at 80 to 100 bucks a pop, you've got a client for life because they will see that and remember you.
Mm, you know what? This is great too, dude. Like you're getting into the really into the meat of business is that relationship building. And for me with these guys, even like wonderful relationship with the outgoing president. She left. She finally, after 9 years, I'm just, I'm just, I'm not overseeing the whole organization anymore. The incoming one is a travel agent. Who do you think I use to book my Disney vacation with? Right. So
Yep.
this is the biggest client I've had to date. And I'm like, all right, let me give her a call. I want to go to Disney. I want to go to Clearwater. I want to do this stuff. Hook me up. Before I even knew that they were going to be back on my radar for this year, just
Yeah.
okay, are your other partners going to be dropping money on you personally using your services? So again, just I love it, dude, because we're helping to solve their problems, but we're also saying, hey, we appreciate you, and it
Yeah.
doesn't go unnoticed. And I love this, dude. I pulled up the website right away.
There's one more that I'll give you too. I'm going to find it. If you're not going more for the food, you want to go more for like gadgets and cool stuff.
mm,
The other company that I use, that again, I just go through my promo products guy. I'm happy to link you or anybody else that's watching this to him.
yep, yep.
And he doesn't get a huge commission on top. It's not like it's more expensive going through him. It's just, I love having someone else to coordinate it and deal with the
Mm,
company. But it's Orig Audio. It's ORIG, like original, ORIG Audio, AUDIO.com. And these guys have more swaggy stuff. So you can get like wireless headphones, you can get like phone charging power bricks, you can get backpacks.
oh my goodness,
And
dude. This little portable
what I
speaker that
like
looks like
about,
a cassette, old school cassette
yep,
player.
yep. And I mean, you're going to want this stuff for yourself, but I think if there's anything I can't stress the most, it's that when you buy promo products for people, you need something that's going to sit on their desk every day for the next year plus, because you want to be top of mind for them. And you want to be that person where they call you up 6 months later and they're like, dude, you sent me that charger for my phone and that wireless thing. It's been sitting on my desk for the past year. Like, they remember this stuff more. The food is great and it's a good surprise and keeps people happy. And it's definitely more on the cheaper side. It's also a great like thank you to your team members too. But if you want to drop a little closer to like $200 to $300 per person as opposed to like $100, this is the way to go because you can send them like a whole collection. Like they have if you go to the top at their website, they basically have three collections. There's the Finley Mill, the Barrow, and the Presidio. And under the Barrow collection, they have this Sierra Scribe journal and
Yep.
holder. It's kind of like a nice, fancier, like notebook folio thing. And this stuff all gets customized with your logo on it. So you're giving them something they're going to keep around all the time, but your logo is branded on it. And that's top of mind for them all the time.
Dude, that is legit. I was looking at the wireless power bank on this site too with the VHS design. So all of this
Yep.
stuff is customizable. Is that the deal?
Yeah, so basically, somewhere on each of these items, there is a place to like print or etch or embroider your logo. And all of this stuff is going to be, packaged up really nicely. And, this isn't a lot of people look at promo products of like, oh, you sent a bunch of pens with your name, like little junky stuff that gets thrown out, right? Like,
Right, right.
we talk about how like things get filed away. My old boss used to joke like that goes in the circular file, which is also known as the trash can. So like give them something that is really going to stick with them, something that they're really going to remember and appreciate and use. The snacks are great, but again, the snacks get eaten and they're gone. If you go for like, the backpack, the shoulder bag, the stuff that they could use day in and day out, you'd be shocked. I did just
Dude, this
like
is great for
hydro
team
flasks.
members even, like,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
for them to be over the top, like,
This stuff, I
man.
mean, this is what it's about. When your
Yep.
team shows up with these are North Face jackets with your logo on it, and again, not to like shamelessly plug him, but my promo products guy comes up with this stuff because you can go to him and say, hey, I found this thing and it's kind of cheap, and he'll come back and be like, hey, if you spend like an extra $5, you can get this. And
Mm.
so I'm again happy to give out his info to anybody. Actually, I'll give you his website here. His website is Fired Up Promotions or Fired Up Promos. um, Most of the products that he sells are not actually in on his website. So don't take it with a grain of salt, his like search feature, because this industry is constantly changing and coming out with stuff. And the order forms on his website are more like an automated service
Hmm.
type thing of like, oh yeah, the minimum's 3,000. I can't buy that. No, if you contact him and say, hey, look, here's what I'm looking to do, just use his website for getting his contact and being able to call him and be like, hey, here's an idea I
Yep.
have, here's what I need to get something for. I have ordered things in minimums of 8, 10, 12. Like, you do not have to worry about numbers on that website. So
Cool.
Fired Up Promos or Fired Up Promotions, his name is David.
Yeah, I was
And
just
he
thinking
has
about
been,
this, this upcoming stream, stuff like this,
yeah,
like with
have your
everybody.
team wear
Yeah.
jackets the whole time. They're going to be in a cold arena. AC is going to be pumping even if it is winter.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because there's going to be a bunch of people around too. Well, this has been
Yeah.
awesome, dude. Thank you so much for your time and expertise, and I'm so glad that where you landed is the same as where I landed. All things considered, the things that go into pricing, right? So you have your tech day, but this is not down the block. This is,
Yeah.
I'm bringing in people from the Northeast. I myself am driving 4.5 hours with my daughter, at least, maybe in my camera operator, one of them, so all that said, really, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Sorry about that. I'm so glad we got through this, and we're really like within thousands of dollars of each other. Yeah.
And
So,
just before we close this out, I'm curious, do you have the math on what you're going to walk away with from this? Because people
oh
can
yeah,
see this
absolutely.
number all
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, definitely. I'll tell you that real quick. Let me pull that up.
Because this is also important too. And hopefully someone watches this far. I know we've been talking for quite some time, but I really hope that they stay till the end to see this part, because you can throw out a $28,000 number, but if you're only coming home with $1,000 of it because you got to pay out all these other people, obviously it's not very motivating. But I know your number is going to be really good here, so
No
I'm
doubt,
curious
no
what you
doubt.
come up with.
Yep. So total profit off of this looks to be right close to $11,000. So ten thousand
On a
nine
one day
hundred
event.
and 33. Yep.
1 day event. And the funny thing is I did some other math too real quick. What was your total number? It was like 28,000.
22,603 is what I submitted. And then, oh no, you're right. It was, we add 800 to that. So let me go back to my proposal software.
Yeah, let me know what your total number was because I want to point something out. I don't know that you realize, but I think you're going to like this.
All right, yep. So the total without the backup bonded cellular, the total was 26,853.
Okay, so 26,853. Remember how we were talking about being able to give the client that average price per finished hour? You told me this was a 12-hour event,
Yep.
roughly.
Yep.
Divide 26,853 by 12 and you get 2237. So you're at $2,200 per finished hour, and you would have fit right in to that range had you given them you wouldn't have given them 1,500 because obviously it's a little bit of a bigger event, but had you given them probably 2,000 to
Mm,
2,500 per finished hour, would have been right on the money.
huge,
And so
dude.
that's
Love
also
it.
where this number works out for you, because going forward, you're going to know an event like this, you could ballpark it at 2,500 bucks per finished hour. And, it's not for the estimate to get approved by the client, but it's just in conversation. If they're like, give me an idea what I'm looking at, and you can say approximately 2,500 per finished hour, you're right on the money with your prices.
I love it, dude. That is, man, if you make a snippet of just this and put it in the group, like that would be incredible value to everyone to understand. Like, yep, from a ballparking it perspective, this is what Ivan's total project would fall under. It would be 2,200 because honestly, besides having the cameras there and the people, that's really, it's going to be vanilla. It's like just bringing up, lower thirds, and then the feed
Right,
from
it's not a
the
crazy
DJ.
fancy.
Right, because
Yeah.
we need it to be wide enough for the judges then to see those infractions. So we're not doing like IMAG and like really punching into people's faces or anything like that. Like they need to see the whole routine area. So it's a wide shot. And then, this happy accident that we had at our last live stream was being able to do instant replay. We could finish um, using our software, like since we weren't using the software to actually stream, it was just like our switcher. Boom, hit record, and at the end of it, stop, close recording, airdrop it. And I'm going over with judges like, oh, yep, can you zoom in? Like it was like CSI, like zoom into this area. And yep, she was inverted. So, you know, we'll let it pass, but they loved it.
Enhance.
And yep, exactly. Enhance. But honestly, brother,
So,
thank you so much for your
yeah,
time with this. And
yeah.
I just want to let you know and everybody in the community know like how valuable this is to be able to have someone to bounce this off of, walk through and get confirmation like, yeah, your figures aren't off. Dude, we're within thousands of dollars of each other. You're spot on. So thanks again, dude.
Any closing pieces of advice to someone who is looking at a pricing calculator maybe for the first time or first 10 times and is just nervous because you know this from experience. When you threw out that $53,000 number for this client last time, I mean, did you have to go change your pants afterwards?
Man,
I
it felt
mean,
like that. It felt like the whole project was about changing my pants. So, I mean, all things considered, coordinating 4 live streams in a single day, almost 40 hours of content in it just being produced in one single day, managing my own site with a lead producer and a PA, and just like, yeah. So I think, what was the question again? I'm so sorry. Like,
just like closing advice for someone going into either pricing for the first time or just being afraid to throw these types of numbers out there, especially seeing as many of them might be new to this.
yeah, I think so. That's a great question. I think with anything you start out, and I think you help people through this as well. Like the first one or two you do at a very low price or for free, potentially. You find a worthy nonprofit and you cut your teeth on that. But then now you have experience to now go after quote unquote bigger fish, using your calculator as a guide to help them navigate what they could potentially earn as a result of doing live streaming. So I think really starting off, if you can, if you have the opportunity, start small, and then use the resource that's been provided as a group member, but then also like, hey, throw it into the group. Hey guys, here's my scenario. What do you think? Am I crazy? Is this too much? Is it not enough? I need someone to help settle my heart, right? Because I think at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to, is like, I need to know, like, I'm not crazy, I'm not greedy. Like, that's my thing, is like, I want to make sure I'm not
Yeah,
being greedy just because I turned this into this client last year for 53. Am I being greedy asking for 28 or 26 this year? And you're telling me, no, bro, you're fine. You're within reason. So in fact, the client looked at it last night. She texted me back. She said, me and this other um, person are going to not present it tonight because we want to come up with a game plan on how to present it so it gets passed. Like,
sure.
when you have clients that are
They
advocating
want
for
to
you
make
like
it
that,
happen.
yeah, dude, yeah, because
Yeah,
they enjoy the working relationship. They don't want to start from scratch with somebody else either. They know, hey, this dude, and to explain, you tell me, dude. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt here in case you
yeah,
want to cut it off, but I would say definitely use the group, use the tools that you've been provided, and and uh, you know, look for confirmation, and people will be more than happy to help you through that.
100%. I mean, I think you're a great resource for that, having gone through all this and experienced it. And yeah, I'm first of all, I'm relieved that our numbers lined up because that means I'm doing something right.
No
But I
doubt.
think, more importantly, the fact that your numbers lined up with mine, I think it really shows that what we're teaching is working, and it's very relevant out in the field when it's put into use.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you so much for jumping on, for being willing to record this and talk through some of the numbers. I know not everyone is willing to share that stuff publicly, so I applaud you and your confidence to throw this out there and to kind of put yourself almost in the Shark Tank, so to speak. And thank you so much for just jumping on to record this with me.
You bet.